peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike, and before I get too, jazzercised, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if after all this awesomeness you still have the wherewithal, it'd be really cool if you shared this with someone who you think would like it, or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That'd mean a lot. And if you want to tell me what parts of the show you were passionate about, peeved you off, or just say hi, you can always reach me on Twitter at @likeikes and at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. So this one's going to be a quick one, as I am trying to do way too much in way too little amount of time. I'm literally leaving to go play a Magic tournament in 9 minutes, so we're going to keep this brief. Been playing Magic all weekend. It's been a blast getting prepared for Regional Championship Atlanta, which is at the end of this week. Also trying a new format, not in Magic, in here. You're going to notice with this episode, there was a lot of changes. Hopefully for the better, but again, you can always reach me on Twitter at @likeikes and passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. What's been going on with me other than prepping away and play too much Magic is I think I found the deck that I wanted to play for Atlanta, which is cool because I was very much kind of like about that. So that's really cool. I found something that I liked. There was this really cool bit on this awesome podcast I'm a big fan of. Had one of the co-hosts, Patrick Sullivan, on. I believe it was in season 2. It's called the Unsleeved Podcast. It is like the Resleevables After Dark, if you will. Resleevables is a Magic kind of history podcast. It's really awesome. Highly recommend. The two co-hosts are probably the best banterers in the magical biz. And they talked about how these are two very competitive people, and they noted somebody's like taking a break from the game, having fun, doing something they enjoy. They're like, nailed it. Good job. Like, and they made a point. Like, this is a game where the payout is not worth the investment. Like, you have to run so good for that to actually be true. So the most important thing is to be having fun. So even if I take the wrong deck, but I enjoy it more than the decks that I, in quotes, should have taken, like, mathematically win percentage wise, that's just correct. Because the likelihood that you were going to win is pretty low anyway. It's like, even if the win percentages you have to have in these tournaments are unrepeatable. Very few players in the history of this game can have that kind of win percentage consistently. So play what you enjoy and hope things work out. But if they don't, you enjoyed what you were doing. So winner! And so that really helped me make a decision. So thank you, Patrick Sullivan and Cedric Phillips. You guys are the best. I don't think I've got a whole hell of a lot going on. But, yeah, I guess that's good because I do need to leave very, very soon. So this is an awesome episode. Met this person playing Magic, but we almost don't talk about Magic at all. This guest's episode is Max Duck. No, I did not make that name up. It is the coolest name ever. At me. He's a fucking, dude, if you're hearing this, Max, you have a D&D skill for a name that's so fucking cool. You were also a fucking cool guest. Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope you enjoy my time with Max and this change of pace with this episode. Take it away, past me. All right, folks. Today on the pod, I have someone who came in 6th in the California State Academic Decathlon, been in the same room as 83% of the Kardashians, and is the tallest member of his immediate family. It's Max Duck!
Hello, Isaac. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It sounds like you're in a tunnel with an echo.
Oh, no, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
But while you get that resolved, the people need to know, what's the silliest thing you believed in as a child?
That's a tough one. I believed a lot of trash when I was a child, but there's one thing that stuck with me for a long time. There was always around town, I've seen the trees on the side of the road with kind of a nice box cut out of the side of them. And it wasn't until my mid 20s that I always assumed someone came by with a truck to trim the tree into the shape to fit the trucks.
That's how that works, right?
Yeah, and embarrassingly, I believed this, like, I don't know, probably till about 10 years ago. I was like, yeah, the tree trimming truck comes and cuts out the little shape of the truck. And it wasn't until I started driving the trucks that it dawned on me that I, in fact, trim the trees.
So whereabouts did you grow up where this was such a common visage that you drove by that inspired this thought?
I'm in Los Angeles, which isn't known for its trees. So the ones that you do see really stand out.
Arguably stand up.
Yeah.
How many brothers and sisters?
Well, none. So I tower over both my mother and my father. Yeah.
As a son should.
Exactly. No one to challenge me.
What, growing up, what careers were your parents in?
Well, my dad worked in Hollywood, and my mom also worked in Hollywood, and a very
Met on a set, did they?
not quite. They had a punk band in Los Angeles.
Wait, what? Oh, hold on.
Okay,
Your
all right.
parents had a punk band?
My parents had a punk band.
Love it. All right. What instruments?
My mom played the drums, and my dad played guitar.
That's so rad.
They lived downtown on Spring and 8th Street. Their band was called the Party Boys. 2 of the 5 members were women, and I think it was the LA Weekly one time said you could dance to it if you were desperate.
That's such a great quote from such a square of a news reporting for a punk band. That's like absolutely. I mean, maybe that kind of kills the action within their own scene that they were even covered by something so, mainstream.
Yeah.
Was this ever a profession, or was this just a love of theirs that turned into the love of their life?
It was sort of a lifestyle profession, I think. My dad worked doing commercials to kind of fill in the gaps, and my mom had, she worked in restaurants as a waitress. But the big job was the band. The band is what held it all together.
So they're doing this band. He's working in commercials. I'm assuming, writing them or shooting them.
He was making sets, quite similar to what I do these days. And
so he's making sets. She's waiting tables.
Yeah.
They're playing music together, which is just, it's kind of like this is such a great, like, I'm imagining in my head 2 different, like, the screen's cut in half. They're each going about their day doing this thing, and you're like, all right, kind of, it's a working family, and that they both get off work at 5, 9 to 5 they get off. Dolly Parton plays as they get, and they drive and they meet up, that wearing their Sunday best, as with working at a restaurant and making commercials. You got to probably be dressed to impress to some extent anyway, and then they probably shed those, put on something a little bit more battered, and then pick up their axe and their kit and just go at it. It's so rad.
It's I mean, I've actually never thought about it that way, and but at the same time, I have trouble actually imagining them at work. Because I've never seen pictures of them from work from that era, just the band. So,
where in Hollywood did your mom end up working?
She was a costumer in commercials for a long time, and then she moved over to stills shoots mostly. So stills is
And this was
And
after they got together?
yeah, this was
Oh,
after.
okay.
Yeah. So she started doing costumes and wardrobe for print advertisements, so stuff you'd see in magazines and early
Oh,
web
right on.
content. And
Yeah.
yeah, and my dad settled down at CBS Studios in the scenic department, painting backdrops for Wheel of Fortune and Price is Right.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
exciting stuff.
So, when do you kind of fit into this picture?
So I didn't go to college. You sung my accolades earlier, and
No, sorry. When did you come? Like, when did you get born?
oh, when
Like,
did I get?
were they still in the punk band when you were born? Had
No,
they,
the band, my birth and the band kind of, you know, it's
one caused the other?
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to
Aw.
say something
You
about,
were the Yoko Ono at the ripe age of 0.
right.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Freaking kids, dude. Just get in the way of your passions, I guess.
Well, I mean, they both went on to work in Hollywood, so it couldn't have been
Yeah.
you couldn't have been too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
Did you ever, growing up, were you ever like on set or like around the biz with your folks?
Few and far between. More, they would bring things home or, show me something they worked on. But uh, it's not, for them and for me especially, we all work below the line. So we're not the directors, the actors. So we don't
below the line meaning
below the line meaning we're
not on screen or
yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but below the line is a phrase for like more the labor within Hollywood, less so the big names. So it's not something you can like bring your children to in a way. If you're Steven Spielberg, you could probably bring your kids on set, but if you're the assist, third grip, maybe not a good look.
So you said they brought you home stuff. As a young kid, did you find that interesting? Or were you like, was it like, other, like if a construction worker brought home a piece of concrete, a kid would be like, neat, dad, thanks. And like, turn away from it. Did you find your parents' work interesting at a young age? Or were you just kind of like, can I go back to my Nintendo? You guys are like fucking up my run at Donkey Kong over here.
A little bit of the latter, because I think within the fabric of Los Angeles, when you're growing up here, so many of your friends' parents work in the industry too.
So it's kind of old hat.
Cameraman, grips, gaffers, everything, electricians. And everyone's dad worked on some movie. I don't know. It just never really like stuck in a way that made it special. But when my cousins would come from Tennessee, they were, like Sunset Boulevard. I can't believe it,
Wow, look at all these lights.
Yeah.
So growing up with parents in the industry, from all that I'm told about it, it is a job that is not just a job, it is a profession. Assuming as such that I'm imagining, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you got home from school, you were often alone for hours at a time.
Well,
Is that
that's
a fair guess?
That's a very astute. Yeah, yeah, it was like that. When mom and dad were working, I was either at a friend's house or waking up early, dropped off at a friend's house to go to school in the morning. And once I had a driver's license, it was,
game over, man.
Game over. No supervision.
So, uh-oh. Time to start my own punk band.
Yeah.
So, being kind of not independent, but being left to your own devices a little bit more than most, do you remember your first meal that you either cooked for yourself or the one that you would cook for yourself most regularly?
Oh gosh, I'm sure it's like a peanut butter and jelly burrito or something.
Oh yeah, I used to call those PB and J roll-ups. I did the exact same thing.
No, this is still something I grapple with. Cooking has been a challenge I've been overcoming for a long time, and I actually honestly can't. I remember the first time making eggs by myself, and I was living with like 3 other roommates, and I want to say I whipped them with soy milk or something so disgusting. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was like 22 years old or something. It's like absolutely no excuse. Just so embarrassing.
No, you had a great excuse.
Yeah.
My parents were in a punk band. They were never around when I was growing up. Like you had the perfect excuse. When did you find out your parents were in a punk band? Was it until like much later, going through an album around like, you came back from college or something like that? You're like, wait, what? Or, was that something that you knew kind of early on?
It was always around. The shirts were around. There's photos of me in the Party Boys shirts as a small child, and there was art on the walls. The records were everywhere. It was still very much, you could feel it growing up.
So growing up with a punk band parents, so a lot of kids that I've talked to growing up, and especially in more, not to issue your childhood, but in a more traditional home, they play what's new on the radio or whatever like that, and often they get the turn that down, it's not music, like, oh, this is gonna have a bad influence on these kids. How different, or were your parents different in that regard? Did they, having come from such a rebellious but musically inclined space, did they turn you on to stuff? Did they enjoy and ask what you were listening to and find enjoyment in it themselves?
Make no mistake, there was still an awkward period in middle school where I was listening to Limp Bizkit or some bullshit and got the...
And your parents were dead on, and that is in fact not music.
What the hell are you listening to? Yeah, make no mistake. But definitely, it's crazy how fast a young person can go through music, and how a different genre or era can like define your whole character and personality, and that changes every month. And I just absorbed and consumed everything, and I really, maybe about midway through high school, I started digging through Dad's stuff, and I was like, okay, Dad, you got some good ones. Okay, cool. so it's a lot of like post-punk, Public Image, Wire, Magazine, stuff that I still listen to all the time.
That's freaking rad.
Came from Dad's record collection.
So you talked about your parents working below the line and made a reference to the fact that you in fact do as well currently. But I'm curious, as someone who, parents were involved in Hollywood, had a punk band, do you remember your first job?
They kind of blurred together because there wasn't...
Because they were all terrible.
The first jobs I ever got were through my mom, and she would have me do a couple errands for her, and I'd walk on set and think I knew, what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. And I remember the first time I fucked up at work. Can I say that? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember the first time I fucked up at work, and that feels like the first job to me.
What did you what was the fuck up?
I was PAing on a commercial, and for those who don't know, a PA is a production assistant. It is maybe the most unrewarding position on a set.
Most replaceable,
lowest compensation, and it's hard work.
Yeah, the way I've heard it described is a gopher that no one cares if they live or die.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, and I felt like that day. I got hung out to dry, and uh, the day started with me driving a bunch of electricians to way into Malibu, and then at lunchtime they said, "Let's go to Neptune's Net," which is a fish and chips restaurant on Highway 1, right across from the beach. We go there. These guys start slamming beers, and then they're like, "Hey, little PA, you have all the petty cash, right?" And the petty cash is the money from the job. And I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like, "Great, get the bill." "Okay, sir." And of course, I bring this receipt back full of booze to the production coordinator, and she's like, you know you're paying for this." The rest of the day didn't get any better. I got a truck stuck in a parking lot. I didn't know how to read the call sheet or map. It was a disaster. But you learn and you don't do it again.
So even from an early age, you were working on sets in some capacity or another. How long did it take you to get from that to doing your, your life force of an occupation?
It was an interesting trajectory, and I started working doing art department, so sets and props and things for stills shoots for magazine and web content stuff. And I was trying to work my way up there, and I was getting jobs on my own as a designer and doing bigger and bigger things, but it's a tricky business and sometimes nasty, and a lot of it I didn't like being forced to, my, I guess, force my labor to work for less money than they deserved or something to try and stay within these budgets that I was given. And the back and forth with production usually was something I wasn't able to do in good faith. And I didn't really like hiring people, my friends, to work for me for low rates and stuff. And that got a little tricky, and the healthcare thing got a little tricky. And so when I was presented an opportunity to join the union and have more stable income, have more stable health insurance, which is a big deal in this country, I kind of set my personal goals aside and said, like, the stability and being able to go home at a reasonable hour every day is worth it to me, that I want to do this.
Damn.
But
That's a heavy pill to swallow.
it is a little bit, and I've definitely had to like dial back my expectations for like what a creative person can do in this industry because of that. But I'm at peace with it, and I think it's one of the best things that I've done for myself, and because the stability it affords me is worth more than, I don't know, having my name on something, I guess.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting how that is one of those things. I feel like that's I don't want to say it's a folly of youth. So I do think it is a beautiful thing, but it seems like something that most people, and some people will find it later, some people find it earlier, some people it never leaves. But I feel like by and large, for most people, that is an ethos of your 20s, but not of your like 40s, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And that you're like, I need to, I need to make this mountain and call it mine. I need to conquer. I need to do this and that. And as your time goes on, you're like, I mean, being home at 6 p.m. is fucking awesome. Like being home at the same time, waking up at the same time, not having to be like, shit, can I get this tooth looked at? Can I afford, to get this tooth looked at? can I can I go see a doctor and point at this weird thing that's growing on my ass and, and see if this is okay or if it needs to get chopped off.
Right. And that's the really tricky thing. I think in your 20s, like you said, you're more willing to take those risks to worry about rent later,
Yeah.
to only work in a position where you're the boss, but maybe you're not working for a long time between those moments. It's a scary thing. And as you get older, for me at least, I stopped thinking that the risk was worth it.
So, as someone who's worked in Hollywood for as long as you have, and works such a specific kind of thing that most people didn't even, myself included, and I went to, it's a little embarrassing because I went to school for film. What is a industry secret or a term only used by fellow set dressers?
Oh, that's a good one. We share a lot of the normal set jargon. I think there's a book of it. I'll look it up later. But wow,
you can buy it for the low price of $11.99.
Yeah. Set dresser specific set jargon. That's a really niche one. I'm gonna have to think about that for a while. Because honestly, we just borrow all our jargon from the grips.
Well, as this is not a film-centric podcast, any and all jargon, I'm sure, is going to be an industry secret for a large amount of our listeners. So definitely don't look for the diamond in the rough. Feel free to just go for the rough.
Oh my gosh! Well, the biggest one is when you have to use the restroom on set. That's 10-100 for a number one, 10-2, 10.
10-100? 10-200?
Absolutely.
Does somebody ever just like get hit with, some food poisoning and go 10-300 and just have to go?
I've heard the 10-3 before. Usually that means something a little more sexual that we roll our eyes at.
Oh no.
Yeah. Where you do the 10-200 is on the trailer is called the honey wagon, which the honey wagon. Yeah, don't ask about the chili truck. That's not. That's what evacuates the honey wagon.
That's so awesome. Oh man. So we talked about it was almost like a reduction of, I'm going to use a word that doesn't exist, I don't think, grandiosity, in that, switching from your 20s to your 30s, where you're like, I would just like to have some normalcy. I would like to have something that's dependable and something that, I'm not worried about and that I can trust. And in that in a different way, even though we've transitioned from that time, both of us for that matter, from that time of like, the moon is mine, I will accept nothing less, to how about I just have a skylight and I can look up at the night I can look up at the moon every night. In a kind of cathartic almost look back, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question. Positively, I hope. But if anything, I feel like I've been dependable, and I would hope that is reflected on other people's opinions of me. As I've always tried to, I stay till the end, and I don't cut corners, even if people sometimes think I'm faffing about. But I really try and do a thorough job, and I try and do a good job, and I try and um, not please everybody, but um, do things correctly. And I
Mm.
would hope that I learned from people that were very good at their jobs, or I thought they were, and so I would hope that I leave that mark on other people, that there is a right way to do it, and there's a reason you do things the correct way.
How much of a, because there's so much from those outside the world would assume there is so much kind of expediency to Hollywood. You got to make, not quota, but you want to do stuff on time. You don't want to be late to the press, so to speak. When it comes to that, is there this kind of almost request to cut corners, or are you given enough time where you can be thorough? Is that ever like an issue?
I mean, that's the battle on a lot of things, and I think the labor numbers and the producers, it's a constant back and forth, and it changes through the development of a show. And you know, sometimes the creative folks, the designers, the directors, they have really big eyes and they want to see big stuff, and sometimes that doesn't correspond with real life. And what I do appreciate about uh, big Hollywood is, as opposed to kind of like music videos and things, is that before the expectation of the art, there's always like an expectation of safety,
Mm.
and uh, that usually kind of guides what's achievable. I mean, safety and money too, but I appreciate
Yeah.
that component to it. So nothing's so crazy that people are staying up all night, or you know risking bodily harm, you know operating heavy machinery. And it's tough because there are moments on TV shows and movies that a lot of the drivers, like the truck drivers, they're asked to stay these outrageous hours,
Hmm.
20, 22 hours on the clock. Some,
Yep.
stuff that seems illegal, but it's not.
Just pay them extra.
just
Yeah,
just pay
exactly.
them extra, yeah.
It'll be fine. So before we move on past this kind of segment, I'm curious: is there any director or like anybody in the biz that you kind of is a bucket list item for you to work with?
Oh, I mean, I'm never gonna get to work with Scorsese, but that would have been cool, But their time's coming soon, so I'll have to pick a younger version of that, I think. Um,
Scorsese 2.0.
yeah, but there's stuff that inspires me now, like even watching something like a contemporary show like Perry Mason or something, how much work goes into making something period. Um,
Hmm.
I really like admire that, and I worked with an amazing prop master recently. Her name's Trish Gallagher Glenn. You can Google her. She worked on Speed. Maybe you saw it. Um, but her attention to detail with period props is something I've never experienced before, and the lengths that she would go to get these things was so incredible. And uh, yeah, I mean, directors, it would be really nice to work on something like a Paul Thomas Anderson thing, because he
Hmm.
doesn't work in contemporary stuff. It's all period because of the way that he builds his stories can't have cell phones and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the challenge in that, and I think I don't like all of his movies that much, but the construction of it is fascinating to me. And it's cool to go to work and, like, even though we're just guys on the job, we have to do a little bit of work too, and kind of adjust our minds when we get sent out. And you're like, is what we're picking up period for the movie, or are we just gonna ruin this on Reddit? You know, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't leave a Starbucks cup in the in the north, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have listeners to this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Oh gosh. One song is a tough ask.
And yet you've been asked all the same.
I know. I lean really, really Gen X, which is kind of embarrassing. So I find myself listening to a lot of post-hardcore and kind of metal from the early 90s, and there's one record that really stands out to me, and it's Harvey Milk's 1997 record, Courtesy and Goodwill Towards Men. There's a song on it that is just unrelenting and heavy and challenging, but also beautiful. If you're not into it, it's probably annoying. But if you open your mind up to it, it's called My Broken Heart Will Never Mend. And it's not as sappy as it sounds.
And with that, we're going to throw it to our sponsors. So please stick around. But hey, if you've got all the doodads you want in life, why not take a minute to enjoy My Broken Heart Will Never Mend by Harvey Milk? Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Having trouble staying awake?
Oh, yeah.
Wish you'd followed your dream so you had the give a crap necessary to meet your deadlines?
Oh, definitely.
Are you likely to be fired the second another warm body walks through that door and asks your boss for an application?
Probably.
Would you prefer to keep this shit sack of a job instead of explaining to Susan that you've been fired?
I mean, I guess.
Well then, let me introduce you to caffeine. Caffeine is a highly addictive substance that'll keep you jittery and energized to do any fucking stupid task for hours.
That sounds like drugs.
It is!
Aren't drugs illegal?
Not this one. So next time you feel like sitting on the sidewalk instead of at your desk, reach for a caffeine.
Wait, you didn't tell me where I can buy it.
'Cause it's mother-loving everywhere, you blind Neanderthal. Welcome back, everybody. So, Max, what's your passion that you brought with you today?
I got, they say you got to put the fun between your legs.
Go on.
Yes. Isaac, have you ever been on a bike ride? It's really fun.
A lovely bicycle. I have been known to ride a bicycle from time to time.
Have you?
Especially in my earlier year. Well, a lot more when I was younger. But yeah, very in the most tepid of terms. I rode my bike to school when I grew up in rural Nevada, so as to avoid. I don't remember why I wanted to do that instead of riding the bus. As where I wasn't particularly close to the school. It was a bit of a ride, although I grew up in a small town, so I'm sure it wasn't actually that far. But it definitely was. It was enough.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, I've been known to ride a bicycle. Why do you ask?
Oh well, I found bikes much later in my life, but it certainly changed my life. And
how much later are we talking here?
Did I mention my parents were punks? So you know, when you're unsupervised for a little bit, you start smoking cigarettes. You get into some bad habits, not terrible habits, but not good ones either. And when I was 24, 25, I made a decision to quit smoking and take a little bit more care of myself. And as a way to curb that, I started riding my bike instead of.
Was it before this? Was this your first time riding a bike? At 25?
No, I had a BMX bike as a kid, but I was no good at it. I
Okay.
was terrified of the outdoors, Isaac. I was an inside kid. Uh,
you're from you're an Angelonian.
Yeah.
Why would you
Why would you ride a bike?
The outdoors, why ever? Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out Los Angeles is a lovely place to ride your bike. And I discovered that while trying to stay out of my car, because that was the biggest reason why I would keep smoking cigarettes, is like sitting in traffic in Los Angeles. And so I moved most things over to the bike. Everything outside of work, I would just ride my bike to it. And I found this like joy I had never known that I was missing. And I liked the bikes. I liked all the gear. I liked all the...
But did you like the gears?
Oh, hey. I was lucky that my first bike was like a very cool Italian, like late 80s, nice lines, good colors, nice components on it. And I think having that bike and people's reception to it, like, hey kid, that's a nice bike. And I was like, gee, thanks.
Gee, mister.
Yeah, gee whiz, you mean it? I think that like really got me into it, and it never stopped. You know, I started doing these night rides that Los Angeles used to have almost every night, and there was the big one. It was kind of on its way out when I was getting into it, but it was called the Wolfpack Hustle, and it was like a fast Monday night ride that started at Tang's Donuts in Silver Lake. And I think the first time I did it, I got dropped out in like North Orange County or somewhere on Telegraph Ave. And
holy shit.
Yeah, and
you went from Silver Lake to Orange County?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I was cold. I was in like cut off jeans and Vans, just lost, you know, the phone's dead. And I was,
no.
And I was like, and then I came back the next week and I was like, I love this. And so, you know, one thing led to another. The night rides kind of saw their way out, and there were a bunch of them. They all had cool names, and they were slightly different crews.
I mean, you got it.
Yeah. There was Cyclones, the Raccoons. There was the Silver Lake ride, the ride formerly known as the Silver Lake Ride.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
That's too
some
meta.
Deep cuts. But it was such a...
If you know, you know, man.
Yeah.
Like...
It was such a special time, and it was like kind of grimy and kind of crusty, but people rode their bikes hard, and it was fast, and it was fun, and it was all at nighttime.
So when you... All right, we're going to rewind the clock a little bit. When did you said, you know, you really got into riding your bike when you were 25, but you had previously ridden a bike. Do you remember when you first started riding a bike? When you initially said, you know, I first started, it sounded to me like you first started riding your bike when you're 25, and I had this image of you being raised in this punk household, and your parents were like, no kid of mine's gonna ride a fucking bike.
No,
skateboard or something. That was like that was a dream of mine for a moment. It's like, holy shit, your parents were true punks.
My parents were trying to get me out of the house at any time, and they would, you know, you got to rebel against your parents. If your parents are cool, you got to be uncool. And
so I didn't ride a bike until I was 25.
Yeah, no. So, you know, my dad tried when I was a youngster, and I just like didn't even realize it was a thing until I had a friend like working at the bike co-op who's like, dude, you should get a bike. And I was like, I think there is one in the garage. Okay, let's do this.
So when you came back to it at 25, you know, doing it somewhat it sounds like either begrudgingly or as like a random mode of transportation when you were a kid, when you came back to it when you were 25, how much of a learning experience was it trying to ride again after all these years away from it?
It was horrific. I remember the first ride I went out, it was like 3 miles or something with my buddies from Highland Park to South Pasadena, which isn't very far on a map, but I was cooked after that. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And
they're like not even drinking water.
no, they're just like, what's wrong with you, dude? And
cigarettes. It turns out cigarettes.
I'm like coughing up like black gack, and it's horrible.
Sold at your local Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Black gack. That's what the kids are into.
Yeah.
How long had you been smoking up until you were 25?
7 years, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty gross too. I won't shame anyone for smoking because it looks cool, but
it does. I do think I agree with you, and I've gone on many rants about this. That is legitimately the dumbest part of the DARE program, is when they said smoking doesn't look cool.
Yeah, wrong.
Yes, fucking Nancy Reagan. It looks awesome.
It looks cool.
You look like a fucking dragon.
It looks cool
in a fucking suit coat. It looks dope.
It makes me want to smoke.
Is it true what they say about smoking, where you just that urge never has left you?
I think it's fully left me now, but it took a while, and even, you know, in my more single days, I'm not single now, but in my more single days,
dang it,
sorry, Isaac. In my more single days, I missed not smoking because it was such an amazing tool to like meet people. Like, hey, you want to have a cigarette? Yeah. You need a light, blah blah blah, you know, whatever. But yeah, now definitely now the smell is starting to like make me feel nauseous, or like if I'm on a crowded porch with people, I'll have to go back inside, kind of thing. So it's finally worked its way to the other side for me. But that's, you know, over 10 years.
Damn. So 25, getting back into biking, your first bike ride doesn't go according to Hoyle. What were you just immediately bit by the bike bug, if you will? Even after that ride, were you just like, I'm about it? Or was it like, well, this is probably good for me, I want to hang out with my friends who are, you know, bike nerds? Like, how did that progress from there?
I think I liked the equipment enough that drew me into it. Like, I liked the bikes and I liked all the bits, and I could geek out on all the shiny stuff on them.
You really messed with Legos when you were a kid, didn't you?
Oh, I was the only child with Legos. You're right. The Legos were my friends growing up. So, you know, I had to fill
It's such a Lego answer, though. Be like, oh, you know, biking, whatever. The bike itself.
The bike itself.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Look at this machinery go.
So efficient. So beautiful. Piece of art.
So what kind of bike did you take the old bike from your parents', you know, garage and go on this run, or did you have to get a new bike?
No, I took the bike from my garage. I was my mom is quite tall, so the bike kind of fit me, and I rode it for about a year and a half before buying my own bike, and I did this really painful and ugly progression for those first 3 years of buying everything wrong you could possibly buy.
All right, well, inform the people out there. What is the wrong things to buy, or is it wrong per person?
You know, you just make baby steps, you know, because you at a certain point your friends are like, you should really just get the biking shorts, you know, do the thing. So rather than just getting the full spandex bibs and the jersey, which for the uninitiated looks like a funny wrestling suit that then you wear an even tighter shirt over, it's really outrageous, but it's functional, trust me. So you get just the shorts, and then, you know, now all your bits are kind of hanging out and you're not in shape yet. So you're riding along and you're like, this doesn't feel good. The waistband's really tight. And so you throw those out, and then you go get the bib shorts, but you're not really ready to get like the form fitting stuff. So you get it a little baggy, and you ride that for a while, and you're like, wait, this baggy stuff isn't really working either. And then you inevitably get rid of that, and it's just this horrible process of lighting money on fire for years. But at a certain point, when my friends have gotten into it since, I've just been like, here's what you do. You buy it once, buy it right, and then, you can actually enjoy what you
do. So you recommend kind of to like stymie it out over time and just, work your way into it, not just get all the doodads all in one go?
I mean, it's a personal journey for everyone. And I think
Okay.
you have to want to ride a bike, especially especially in this city, because it can be harrowing at times riding in Los Angeles. It's not every neighborhood is the friendliest place.
How are they unfriendly? Is it like street design, occupants?
It's mostly street design. Even the occupants, I think, come down to street design in Los Angeles. Roads that are built 6 lanes wide are going to encourage speed. And
yeah,
there's no, you can put a 35 mile per hour sign on it, but if you have 3 wide
that's just a
lanes,
challenge in LA.
People are going to drive 50. Of course they are. So it's never going to become this like multimodal utopia until something drastic.
Do you find yourself enjoying riding kind of in the bike lane, or do you prefer like bike paths, or just like almost like not hiking paths, because obviously those probably go up too harsh, but I mean there are different places for you where you can ride a bike, right?
Yeah, and as my journey of a cyclist has gone on, I've like ridden on all the streets, like in like every bike path, every road, every bike lane in town. And the more I ride, the fewer streets I ride. So now I have like one route to get to the West Side, one route to get to the North Valley, one route to get to Pasadena, one route to get downtown. And it's all just like been distilled of like bad encounters along the way. It's really crazy.
He's Lewis and Clarked his way to Nirvana.
Yeah, exactly. So now you'll never see me on the road because I have a super secret, sneaky way to get everywhere.
Before I lose track of it, how long after you started biking at 25 did it take you to get clean of tobacco?
I went cold turkey, and I didn't relapse. Or you don't relapse cigarettes, I guess, but I did really well for probably 5 years, and then there was like kind of a tough summer, and I was dealing with injury and stuff, and I started smoking at work again and being a bad boy. But I had to, I had to face reality with that one. Like, what are you doing, dude? You worked so hard to not do this. Like, yeah. So yeah, I went cold turkey, and it was really like shocking to my system. I remember that. I remember like sitting on the stoop of my house, like coughing up black stuff, and like something's like, I'm so glad I'm doing this, because this inside of me is not.
Yeah, I don't think this is what it should be coming out of me.
No, I didn't know that was a thing that happened. I've never, yeah.
So in movies and film, that area in which you work, they often show bicycling in many different ways. Are there any depictions that you think are either authentic and truthful or kind of deceitful that you've noticed over the years?
That's a tricky thing. Most cyclists on film are like kind of these like fitness actors.
True.
Yeah. And it takes a very cycling centric film to cast cyclists for it. There was a movie that maybe no one saw that came out a few years ago, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, called Premium Rush.
Yeah.
Where he has kind of like cool bike vision, where he can see the future.
This is the one where the antagonist is like Michael Shannon,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, the dirty cop who's got a fucking like is like Pygow or Baccarat addiction
right. That movie was funny. They cast like for all the stunts and stuff like real New York like fixie messengers and stuff, which was pretty cool. And then I think, you know, like some of the classics like Breaking Away and things, those have real cyclists in them, I'm sure.
So it's just usually too athletic. And if I'm understanding you right, like in your estimation, it's always just like there's no like casual, you know, or even like pro-am level of, you know, cycling. It's always just like it's either a kid, you know, going to school or whatever like that, which is, you know, they literally have the actor on the bike, or they have to hire a double because it's somebody who's just like, this is what I do.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the intersection of those two things are funny too, because, you know, as more and more cities are trying to, you know, have cycling be a part of the fabric, it's not like reflected in media that much, especially not in commercials in any functional way. But yeah, I don't know, just like an interesting little thing. That
What would you say is the biggest misconception about cycling by like the people you've talked to? Like anytime you bring up like, yeah, I like to bike around. Do people just like say something? You're like, what? No. Like,
I mean, it can range from so much stuff. If it's a guy in a car next to me, he's probably screaming at me like, "Why don't you pay your taxes?" And I was like,
What the?
I was like, I do pay the street taxes. I also drive.
We're not so different, you and I. Have you actually had somebody say, "Why don't you pay your taxes?"
Absolutely.
Oh my god! What the fuck? Like riding your bike precludes you from paying your taxes.
Right. That's who rides their bikes.
I mean, like an IRS agent shows up at your house, sir, and just like lift up your swing. And you're just like, come on. They're like, oh,
yeah, I'm so sorry.
Sir. And like, they just leave.
I have the wrong address.
Oh my god, I can't. Well, on the jeez, that's just so absurd. On the other side of the same coin,
I'm sorry, what
is there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, is there a favorite non-obvious aspect that most people, including absurd people in vehicles shouting nonsense, don't notice or understand about cycling? That you just I don't want to say it makes your heart sing, but it's like very much a cherry on top, if not the whipped cream of the sundae.
I mean, I think cycling can bring this. It's challenging and it's tough and it's not always fun. And when you're exposed to all of these stressors while you're riding, it can really wear on you in a big way. But at the same time, there's this crazy experiential thing that happens, you know, when you build up the fitness and do all the work and have years of experience and have been on all these huge rides, and you go out and you ride like 6-7 hours in the mountains or something, you know, climbing up into the San Gabriels all day, and then come down, like the places that you go, the things you see. I think that was like The Hobbit. That's what he said, right? But it's really extraordinary, and it's like hard to quantify the feeling of that. And it's, you know, there's some parts that are so unpleasant, but like on the whole, it's always so deeply satisfying to do something like that and know that you did it yourself like completely powered by yourself and your like willingness to do something like that, like to take on a challenge like that.
Is that you're talking about these long rides? Is there a named ride or a destination that you would like to traverse with your bicycle at some point? Is there a kind of, like
I mean,
I'm trying to remember a term for, bucket list item, but
yeah, I mean, cyclists have like probably most of them have a list of mountain climbs that, the Tour de France goes up. And I mean, I would love to do all of those things. And I have done some of them in Spain and Italy that have been featured in the, Spain has kind of its own Tour de France called the Vuelta a España. Italy as well, the Giro d'Italia. And, cycling is so cool because you can play on the same field that your heroes are.
yeah.
It's like no other sport. You can't go down to Staples Center and like, excuse me, the crypto arena and like play ball with Kawhi. Like it's not, it can't happen. But like out on the road, like you get to experience the same thing that like what you see on TV with like the best cyclists in the world. And like sometimes you even see those guys out there. It's crazy.
That's fucking rad. All right. Well, on that literally high-spirited moment, we're going to transition from the lovely to the lackluster. Max, what is your preposterous peeve?
Preposterous peeve. Okay. Hear me out. Don't bring your dog into the coffee shop. There's a little sticker on the window that probably says, don't bring your dog in the coffee shop. And
but Mr. Snuggles gets cold outside.
Mr. Snuggles is going to be fine if you leash him up. He's not going to know the difference. I mean, why have a health code at all? Why, it's just, I don't know. And it's such a, I feel like it's such a Los Angeles thing to bring your dog in the coffee shop. And there's definitely, I'm no statistician, but there's a correlation between how much your rent is and how much your dog is in the coffee shop. So you can guarantee that in Silver Lake, there's a lot of dogs in the coffee shop. All right, I'm done. I'm sorry. But it's outrageous.
When did you first, growing up in LA, and maybe this is a time signature when people started doing this, maybe this is a time signature when you started getting coffee, but when did you first notice this becoming a irritable itch for you, so to speak?
Well, the coffee becoming ubiquitous, like in every neighborhood, this kind of like, what do they call it? Like the third wave coffee, the kind of intelligentsia, whatever, the fancy $5 coffee. Yeah. I think with that came this dog culture. But, when I was growing up, I don't really remember people bringing their dogs out to places. Like this is like
yeah, I mean, you go for a walk.
Yeah, you take the dog for a walk.
Take him to the park, but yeah.
I mean, I don't even remember dog parks.
Oh no, not dog parks. Just taking him.
Right. But I don't remember the culture of bringing your dog everywhere with you. This seems like a thing of the 21st
I think it was rich
century.
White women seeing like service dogs and being like, yeah. It's like,
yeah, Snoopy's coming to the beach next week. Yeah. Yeah. Well, back in the 1900s, dogs didn't do that. They lived at home.
And they loved it there. Darn it.
They loved it. They loved it at home.
Do you have an occurrence where this perhaps raised your blood pressure a little bit too much?
I mean, I think
words were spoken loudly, maybe even.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what defines a pet like a peeve like that is that it actually doesn't
Sure.
affect me that someone's dog is in the coffee shop, but it affects this weird rules part of my brain, I think. And it shouldn't matter, it's like, it's just a sign on the door, it's just paint on the road, like, you're not hurting anyone, it's fine, I'm not allergic to the dog, obviously no one else is, like, what's the problem? But for some reason the dog thing, it's just,
It says it on the
it says
door.
it on the dang door, dude. Read the room.
Oh, and with that hilarious signage, we're going to head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Max is going to enter the lightning round. Have you ever just looked at fried carbs on a plate and thought, I need to eat those, but it doesn't taste all that appetizing? Introducing catsup. Catsup is a sugary and red syrupy paste that'll overshadow any unappreciated taste. Simply douse the unpreferred tasting object and ingest. Mmm. Thanks, catsup. And we're back! Max, are you ready to enter lightning round? The lightning round.
I hope so.
All right. Put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Max, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
$2 million.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Dishes.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Absolutely.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Terrible, always.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
Lame when I was a kid, really cool now as an adult.
Do you create your own thoughts or just listen to them?
Oh God. Don't ask me that.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Album or playlist. Shuffle is devil's poison.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
Skip.
Are you I don't know if that's the name of the character or if you don't want to answer the question. Are you out of touch or is it the children who are wrong?
I'm definitely out of touch, unfortunately.
What is more important, freedom or structure?
Freedom.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Ooh, kangaroo legs.
Would you rather meet an alien or a ghost?
Ghost. Aliens are way too scary.
Are hot dogs tacos?
Never thought about that. No.
Skydiving or deep sea diving?
Deep sea diving.
Subbed or dubbed?
Subbed.
Do you read in the bathroom?
Far too long.
Is karma real?
Unfortunately.
Do you pee in the shower?
Don't. No. Yes. Don't tell my girlfriend.
Would you rather eat chocolate flavored poop or poop flavored chocolate?
Poop flavored chocolate.
To get a song out of your head, do you listen to the song or listen to a new song?
I make my girlfriend listen to this song.
Do people who prefer Pepsi to Coke deserve rights?
Yes.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
37 heads of broccoli? Just kidding. It's 37 pieces of pizza. No, I don't think I could.
Well, either way, congratulations. You survived the lightning round.
Hey!
Woo! Now, as a reward, my gallant guest, I grant thee a lightning round question of your own to be echoed until we get bored of it. What you got for us, champ?
All right, Isaac. Live to work or work to live?
Work to live. I esteemed to live to work, but then, like, I don't know, kind of like your earlier point about, work. It was like, man, like, having regularity, having a schedule, being able to depend and like no rough, somebody goes, hey, in a couple weeks, going to the show about, 7 p.m. you want in? And you don't have to be like, talk to me in 2.5 weeks.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Work to live. Having time off from both these strikes, COVID-19, lets you slow down, appreciate life, and all the other things that, like make it worth living or whatever.
No longer chained to the gang. He knows his worth.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, as we come to a close here, anything you want to plug, shout outs you'd like to give, places people can find you or your content?
You can find me out on the mean streets of Los Angeles or up Highway 2 on my way to Mount Wilson. Don't look at my IMDb, but you can find me on Instagram at maxduck, MAXDUCK. And Isaac, it's been a real pleasure.
It has been a pleasure, my guy.
Thanks for having me. I've learned so much about you. You've learned so much about me.
All right, past me. All kidding aside, thank you so much for coming and being my guest today, Max. And a special thanks are due to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you. Yes, you listening at home, wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please do subscribe, like, or just share with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks, and if your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And do remember, folks, if our days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.